stay muted.
This meeting is being recorded.
And please stop your camera and introduce you again to my colleague, Mike Azevedo. And Mike is also a county coordinator of Santa Clara County. And so enjoy the class. And put all your questions in the chat. I will answer them as I can during the chat. And at the end, I'll be sharing resources with you, wonderful resources. Okay, so please, stay with us. And we'll try to keep it to an hour. It may go just a little bit over because there's so much information to share. And remember, this is an introductory class. Okay. All right. So, Mike.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Welcome.
So the first where we're going to be starting today is about monitoring nest boxes. And way back when I'm sure Sue was part of the Bluebird L email list from Cornell with me. And way back then, they would tell you if you can't monitor a nest box, they don't even want you to put up a nest box. But there are certain reasons for that. The main reason, I think, is house sparrows, and not everywhere you put up a nest box is going to have house sparrows. But there's a lot of different reasons why you would want, why we are going to ask you to monitor your nest boxes. And what I'd like to do is tell you how and why and things like that. So first of all, why do you monitor a nest box, and how often should you monitor? So let's start there. We monitor about once a week during the nesting season. That season starts as early as February and lasts as late as August. And it really varies from place to place. There are microclimates. It may be different, it may be a month later or a month earlier, depending on, what birds you might find in bird species, or based on just the way the climate works in your area. So how early nests appear in your neighborhood really varies, and you will eventually come to figure out when you can really expect to see nests. So answering the question of why you monitor, one good reason is predation. You can't babysit these birds. Often the best you can do is to respond when something happens. I'll talk about that more when we discuss challenges, but helping a nest full of young birds through an attack, or sadly just trying to prevent the next attack that is likely to come, may be all that you can do. And knowing that something just happened to the occupants of the nest is the first step. Weekly monitoring is the key. I talked about house sparrows. This is another reason to monitor every week. Just during the season, I'll discuss what to do when you find them in challenges, but you need to be watching so you can deal with the problem before it gets worse. And what you see here is two nests, one built on top of another. We don't want this. So you will hopefully show up each week, and on schedule, you will find an empty nest. Hopefully it is on schedule, because finding an empty nest at the wrong time is a bad sign. We'll talk more about that. But either way, keep in mind that these birds are expert nest builders. Get rid of that old poopy mess and let them build a nice, clean, fresh nest. One reason is that old nests may have parasite eggs or blowfly eggs or something like that. Reason number two is that the second nest in the box will be built on top of the first. That makes the nest taller, and the cup is closer to the entrance, which means that those babies are closer to the door. Closer to the door is an invitation to predators who want to reach in and grab the snack. Predator guards are supposed to keep the babies further away from trouble, but here a taller nest would defeat the purpose. So my daughter here is petting a horse that lives right next to one of our nest boxes. That illustrates a possible problem, because horsehair is well known to get used in nest boxes by the birds, and it can get wrapped up around babies' legs. Many a chick has been found hanging on horsehair. Check your box weekly, and you may have an opportunity to save a chick before they die from this or other problems that you might be able to prevent ahead of time. So the horsehair wasn't actually the reason for this. The main reason is to explain that there are things you're going to find in there you might be able to help if you check every week. Just weird little problems you might find. And now and then stuff just falls apart. Wood cracks, things fall off. You're a landlord and you don't even have to plunge toilets. This is the easiest landlord job out there. So we ask you to monitor weekly, and now you will find out why this can be so useful. It's a little something I like to call Bluebird math. The numbers just work very well. So it takes a day to lay an egg. While laying eggs, the parents don't sit on the eggs. They will sit on them all at once. Once they need to start incubating. And because incubation starts at the same time, they all hatch basically at once. Now, let's say you check on Monday and you find 2 eggs. The next week on Monday, you find 5. Well, that means things are working just as the calendar shows right here. Brooding starts on Friday, so incubation begins. They may lay 2 eggs or they may lay 6. It all depends on how confident the birds are of what insect populations will look like in a month. And hunting is going to be easy if you only have 2 mouths to feed. And so if things don't look all that good, if the insect population out there doesn't look very good, they may only lay 2 eggs. So if they lay 2 eggs, then you would simply start, then they start incubating on that day 3, and it goes from there. Now, I started egg laying here on Sunday on my calendar here, but it could happen any day of the week. The key to the rest of it is when brooding begins. So once brooding begins, drop down 2 weeks to see when hatching should occur. And by the way, bluebirds follow this schedule, and it does vary a little bit from species to species, but for cavity nesting songbirds, it is pretty close to this system, and it should work pretty well. So then they all hatch, and if you drop 2 weeks, that's when you get down to nearing fledging age. So, and then you get those last 4 days. Love how this works because you can just drop down the 2 weeks from incubating, 2 weeks down to those last 4 days, and then you will know that you have that you are in the pre-fledged period. Well, what is pre-fledged period? Those last few days, the birds are practicing their flying skills and they're getting ready to fledge. In theory, when you open that box and the chicks are that old, they may panic and try and fledge. Problem is, they may not be ready. If this is the case, they'll flop all over the ground and you will have to run and try and catch them and stick them back into the box. To avoid this, you can just keep track of where in the cycle the birds are. And when you get to that age, handle it like this. Those older chicks, they need to be fed every 10 minutes. The parents are working overtime. Just hang back and watch to see if the parents return with food. It should happen shortly. You may even hear the chicks calling out. All you need to know is that there are chicks. Make a note that you have chicks and move on. So let's talk about the technique used to check nest boxes. First of all, when to check. If it is cold or windy outside, that can certainly make the young uncomfortable when you open that box. So you're better off waiting until a time of day when the atmosphere outside is relatively comfortable. By knocking ahead of time, opening the nest box, you give any parent birds the opportunity to exit the box before you open it up. They won't always take advantage of it, but it is nice to give them a chance. And we advocate a no-touch policy. That doesn't mean that you can't touch them if there's a solid reason to. For example, if a baby is stuck on horsehair, you can pick it up and remove the hair. On the other hand, just picking the babies up when you don't need to is unnecessary. If you don't need to, just leave them alone. The bird above, for example, is brooding eggs. Chances are, the next time you show up, the mama will be gone and you can count the eggs. You can just write down that a female is brooding. And if she's there the next time, you can just wait yet another week. If you have to actually count babies, you can do that. Normally, I figure I have to count, I have a good count of eggs, so I don't really need to count babies. They're always laying all over each other, and it is kind of hard to get an accurate count anyway. But here's a screen that Georgette uses for monitoring. As she opens up her nest box, she slips this screen under the door and is able to block anything from falling out. It's easy to make with wire cloth, duct tape, and a carabiner. And how you collect your data is up to you. I've been known to write it down on scratch paper and transfer it to a spreadsheet seen above. There are forms available on our website that you can also print out and take with you. Things to note on my sheet, as you see, like where it says TRESBR, that's tree swallows, the 4-letter abbreviation that I noted, and I noted that the bird was brooding. You notice I write TRESY, which means young were present. I don't get numbers unless I didn't get a good count of eggs. So that's why I only wrote Y. So just young, just said, I kind of assumed that the number of eggs is going to give me a decent count on what is in the box from that point on. When I find an empty nest, and it makes sense that it is empty based on the nesting cycles, I just figure that they fledge. I should have a number of eggs. When I find the empty nest, it may have bad eggs in it, eggs that never hatched. Or it may also, unfortunately, have dead young birds. This is natural, unfortunately. What I do is subtract the number of bad eggs, the number of dead babies, from the number of eggs that I had previously counted. Now, notice on this sheet the black entry. I had a nest with tree swallow eggs. The next week, the mother was brooding. This meant that more eggs could have been laid, so I knew I needed to count beaks the next time I came back. I did, and I counted 5 chicks. Unfortunately, the nest was completely empty when I came back that next week. A snake had predated the baby birds. I knew that those babies should still have been there based on the cycles. So, you know what? We started from this point on the last time, so I'm sorry about that. Nest box monitoring tools. Here is the 2-compartment bag that Georgette uses for nest box monitoring. You can also use a day pack, a tool belt, or fishing vest that can be used to carry your tools. And here are some safety items that you can bring to make your nest box monitoring a little bit safer. A hat, a cell phone for GPS, a walking stick, water, a first aid kit, insect spray, snacks, and a compass. Obviously, use discretion. I have no idea where your trail is, or if it's in a little city park near your house, or you may not need some of this stuff. If it is, I mean, you may not need any of it. If it is half a mile into an open space preserve, I'd recommend seriously considering bringing all of it. Now, these items may come in handy. A cell phone that can be used to record data. For example, I actually have gotten into the habit of recording a video where I give myself what I found in the last 3 nest boxes. Then I'll do the same after the following 3. And then when I get home, I just go ahead and play all the videos and put it all on a spreadsheet. Alternately, you can use scratch paper or print out one of the forms from our website. Don't forget a couple of pens or pencils. If you like, if you like the screen idea, obviously you can put that on your list. And if you are using hanging boxes, your list has got to include some kind of lifter retriever, whether it is the hook style or the basket style. I'll talk a little bit more about this in a little while. Now, I have a slotted and a Phillips screwdriver here, and there's actually a good reason for that. Now, you never know when you have to pry something open, or and I always recommend having Phillips screwdrivers in case a screw needs to be tightened, or you use them to open up your nest box and secure it. And putty knives or paint scrapers are really good for scraping those old nests out of the box. They do a much better job than just using the screwdriver. And pliers are another one of those tools that rescue you when you can't get your box open and you don't want to go all the way back to the car to search for something else, something to help. And of course, brushes. I need to talk about scissors real quick. Scissors are good for you never know when you're going to need to cut, like I said, horsehair or various things. Things often come up And scissors are another item that is good to just have along with you. Brushes are good to have when you're dealing with those old dusty nests inside the box. So it gets pretty bad in there, and it's nice to be able to just go ahead and use the brush to scrape it out. And dental or mechanics mirrors are good to have because some of the nests can be hard to see into. Mirrors that can be put in the box and allow you to count eggs are useful. And a cloth or a handkerchief. Now, one of Georgette's tricks is to use her screen in conjunction with stuffing cloth into the entrance hole to make sure that none of the nestlings come jumping out of your nest box as a pre-fledge. This is a trick she got from Don Yoder. And gloves, rubber or cloth or leather, are all good to have when cleaning out nest boxes. And here are a few more good things to have. So we've used we've used masks on the trail long before COVID. They're good to have along when cleaning out those dusty nest boxes. You don't want to inhale anything. And diatomaceous earth is a tool to combat ants. Though it looks like powder, it actually has the consistency of broken glass as far as ants are concerned. Use it carefully. Don't use it where it could come in contact with the babies because it could irritate their skin. But diatomaceous earth may have the advantage over another ant fighting tool called Tanglefoot. The product shown here is a bit better than Tanglefoot, which is similar to grease. You could put it on the pole to prevent ants from crossing it, but you need to avoid the possibility of getting it inadvertently on the birds. Get Tanglefoot on feathers and you will regret it, and the birds regret it even more. The Tangle Trap stuff that I'm showing here is better than Tanglefoot, but it is no less a problem for the birds if you're not careful. Let's say you are hanging a nest box with ant problems. Here's what Lee Pauser had to say about this product. I prefer this can of it because it includes a brush. This is over Tanglefoot. Care must be taken to avoid applying it where a bird might come in contact with it. So I apply a band of it completely around the wire just below the hanger wires hook. Now remember, he's using this on hanging nest boxes. The band could be 1/2 to 1 inch wide or so. It becomes less effective as the surface hardens or enough ants get stuck in it to form a little bridge. It may need to be refreshed the next week. One also needs to be careful not to contact it when handling the box yourself, as it is hard to clean off. Screws often come in handy. Sometimes you need to find a longer screw or replace one that just isn't holding the box closed anymore, or the nest box is loose and needs to be tightened up. And plastic bags, big or small, often become useful when something needs to be held onto for some reason. Small plastic containers can be used to hold on to grass. They could be used to reconstruct nests that get wet or for some other reason just won't work anymore. And you will no doubt collect other items for your trail like hammers, stakes, wire, extra nest boxes, but these are the essentials to get you started. Now, a lot of people start off with the idea of putting a nest box in their yard. That may work and it may not. It usually takes at least an acre of grassland to make good hunting grounds for a western bluebird nest, and more if we're talking about the mountain bluebird family. Your lawn might get hunted by bluebirds, but it may take more territory to really do it for them. A schoolyard across the fence, for example, would absolutely provide a good source of food. It's just a matter of how much food is available. If you see bluebirds in your yard, by all means, put up a bluebird house. If you see them nearby, put up a bluebird house. If you never see them, or you can tell that there isn't a native bird plant within a 1/4 mile of your nest box, of your house, maybe your backyard isn't the best place for a nest box. But then again, there are backyards that have no bluebirds, but they do have other cavity nesting birds hoping for your assistance. If you think this might be you, let us know and we'll see what was going on. Native plants are the key to success in a backyard nest. not just what is in your yard, but what is nearby. So let's say you live in an apartment, or you know your backyard is not a good place for a nest box. Look at the park nearby or other open space. You can set up a nest box trail. A nest box trail is a string or strings of nest boxes. I have a nest box trail with 3 lines of nest boxes, including Bluebird boxes, chickadee boxes, barn owl boxes, American kestrel boxes at a county park near my house. Well, it's not near my house anymore, but it was. And don't just put up nest boxes on public property. Get permission. The way you do this is to find out who controls it, who controls the land, and go to them and ask. They are actually kind of used to people making requests like this. They'll have questions for you, and we can usually help you through the process. And by the way, county parks, city parks, and even utility districts have volunteer groups. Joining volunteer groups like this may make the job of setting up nest box trails on land controlled by that agency easier. One question they often ask is what kind of birds might nest in your nest box. Now, I've made a big deal about the fact that birds need to be in your neighborhood to nest in your nest box. How could you possibly know? Well, here is an idea. eBird is an app and website that allows you to find birds and birders that birders have found in your neighborhood. It is popular and getting better and better known and used. You can see what cavity nesting birds are common near your house. And if you're looking at a park or other open space, the birders may well be birding there. When you set up a nest box trail, know what species to expect and install boxes that use the preferences we know each target species prefers. And again, CBRP is here to help you figure all of this out. So in summary, when you are setting up a nest box trail, consider the habitat, the canopy, tree species, birds seen in the area, pesticides, human activity, construction, purchase for hunting, and safe entry for parents. So there are a few ways to mount your nest box. Let's go over them and discuss the pros and the cons of each. So pole-mounted nest boxes are probably the preferred method of mounting a nest box if it's available to you. It isn't always. For example, it isn't available to me on my trail in my county park. Installing a pole is considered development, believe it or not, and it takes a CEQA process, including getting community comment over a number of weeks to install them. That being said, they should be considered. Installation can involve quite a process, such as using an auger like this one. These can dig a good pole hole pretty fast, but remember to check with the utilities to be sure you aren't going to hit a gas line or something. Or you can just start the hole using a shovel or a post hole digger. And frankly, you may not even need any of this if the ground is soft, like right after rains. These fence post drivers are a good way to drive the pole into the ground. If the ground is soft enough, you probably won't even need to start with an auger or a shovel. And look at the conduit clamp in the middle of this pole. This is a good way to secure the box to the pole. U-bolts can also do the job. Notice that the conduit clamp is screwed into the floor. And notice that Tim McClintock here, our monitor, is drilling into the pipe, the pole, and through the wood so he can put a bolt through that will hold the box to the pole in one place. You can also drill through the clamp to the pole. The pole here is actually electrical conduit. There are a number of ways to attach the box to the pole. Some of Tim's boxes have track rails. Track rails have parts that allow the box to be clamped to the pole. Now, how about the pros of using this? They're easy to put in and move around. They're easier to put in than they are to move. The nice thing is you can put them wherever you want. You can put them exactly how far away from a tree or a bush or something like that you want. You can put them exactly where you want. Once you put them in, you can move them by going in and removing all of the parts and then moving the pole back and forth. You can imagine it's not that easy to pull the pole out, but it can be done. And then it is compatible with the stovepipe baffle and the knoll guard. This now the Knoll guard can be used on many different kinds of boxes, but the stovepipe baffle can only be used on pole mounted nest boxes. They're not as vulnerable to predators as post mounted or tree mounted nest boxes. And they're most safe across the nation. What I mean by that is if you were going to go be Johnny Nestbox across the nation and putting up nest boxes everywhere, and you were trying to find a nice, safe place to put nest boxes everywhere, this would be your best bet if you could only use one particular way to mount the nest boxes. The cons, they're not always an option. That's really the biggest con. So post-mounted nest boxes are, the installation is easy. You literally just take a battery-operated drill gun and you drill the screws through the bottom of the box into the pole or the post, and you're in. They are easy to move. They're easy to install and uninstall. So you could just drill the screws back out and move it to another post somewhere else. And they may be your only option. For example, at my county park, they really are the only option I've got other than hanging nest boxes. So I've got a mix of post-mounted and hanging nest boxes. The cons are they are very vulnerable to predators. In fact, Sue is, I'm sure, biting her lip, wanting to get on and say something about them, but I'm just letting you know that they are vulnerable to predators. The tree-mounted boxes are very similar. Their installation is pretty much just the same. You literally put the screw in and mount it to the tree. The pros are the same as with the poles. They're easy to install and move, and they may be your only option. The cons, they are also very vulnerable to predators, even a little bit more than the post, but basically both are very vulnerable to predators. So why would anybody use the tree mounted? Well, out in, say, a golf course, the grass is so low that snakes don't tend to go around as frequently as they do at my county park, for example. At my county park, the grasses can get up to your knee high, whereas on a golf course, they're not like that. So the snakes are kind of, they feel uncomfortable going out, and they're not going to hit the nest boxes like they would. And if you use a knoll guard on them, then that makes them a little bit better. But they are still tree-mounted nest boxes, are considered very vulnerable to predators. The hanging nest box. Now, I've got a couple of different kind of retrievers to show you. This is using a retriever to put the nest box onto a tree branch. So the way that this one, I'm using a basket style retriever on this nest box, and you lift up on it, pull it down, and you pull it, and then we'll get a chance to see the chickadees that are using this. So as you can see, this is under the canopy of the tree. That it's a little cooler under there. It's very comfortable for the nest box, the occupants of the nest box, right? Those little chickadees. There are a lot of different kind of birds that like to nest under the canopy. Bluebirds have no problem nesting under the canopy, but there are other birds that really prefer to nest under the canopy. The pros of using a hanging nest box are that they are not as vulnerable to predators in California. I've had conversations with my friends who check their nest boxes in Louisiana, and they are shocked, I tell you, to hear that we use hanging nest boxes in our trees, because over there they have a lot of tree climbing snakes that are just crawling through the trees looking for things to eat. Here, our biggest snake problem is the gopher snake. And yes, unfortunately, I do have at least one video of a snake inside a nest box that was hanging in a tree, but it's not very common. It's actually pretty rare. So these hanging nest boxes are considered fairly safe from various kind of predators. They're not perfectly safe. That it's not like nothing is ever able to get to them, but they're less vulnerable than the post-mounted and the tree-mounted for sure. They are excellent for many bird species, as I said, the chickadees, titmice, and the nuthatches, things like that. They all prefer tree-mounted, the ones that are hanging in the nest box. The white-breasted nuthatch actually likes to have it close to the trunk, so they're good with hanging nest boxes, but they don't want to fly all the way out. So there's that. As global climate change worsens, the cooling effects of the canopy is going to help a lot of our birds. So although bluebirds and tree swallows are good with nesting out from under the canopy, as things get hotter and hotter, it's going to start making them more successful if they are under canopy. And then it keeps nest boxes away from vandals. And the reason this is important is because, for example, at my county park, where I have my hanging nest boxes, the reason I have them there is because there are a lot of picnic areas, and picnic areas mean little kids running around with nothing to do, looking for trouble. And if they find a nest box at their level, they're liable to do something to it, like bang on it or knock on it or things like that, bug the birds, not let them feed their young. Whereas if it's up in the nest, up in the tree, it's going to be a lot safer from them. So the cloth one here is my basket style retriever. And unfortunately, I'm almost covering the little hook style retriever that is underneath it. Now, you saw the first picture I showed you was the hook style retriever in use. And those are when you go up and use the hook in order to remove the nest box. It is actually it can be the way it hangs off the branch can be kind of hard to pull it down. And by the way, one of the cons of using a hanging nest box is that you need the retriever. And it can be kind of awkward to carry them out there, and it takes a certain amount of upper body strength. So if you don't have that much upper body strength, do not put them too high in the tree. Put them low enough in the tree that you're going to be able to get them out. And that's especially true if you're using the hook style, because the hook style, you really need to be able, just the way it hangs off, all the weight is being pulled off the end like that. So it's possible to do it. Now, I need to get pictures of this, because over at McCollum Ranch, they've now put little loops in all of their hanging nest boxes that make it so that you can stick the hook underneath and lift it up easier than trying to get underneath the branch with the hook. There is a lot of information on hanging nest boxes on our website, cbrp.org. There's a whole video that Lee Pauser did, and there's a lot of information there. If you have any questions about hanging nest boxes, we do highly recommend them in California. And by the way, they were invented really by Dick Purvis down in the Southern California Bluebird Club. And you'll probably, I assume he's still coming to the meetings. So you might actually get a chance to meet him if you go to the meeting tomorrow that you're going to learn all about at the end of this meeting. So this is the hook style retriever in use. And now that brings us to why keep data. So why you keep data is because you can't remember everything that happens. And you want to learn and study from what you find. You want to keep notes week by week, notes of repairs needed, number of eggs, the presence of hatchlings, bird IDs, bird species, and things like that. And when you go the next week, it's really nice to be able to refer to what you saw last week. I guarantee you, unless you have a really good memory, and I certainly don't, it's nice to be able to refer to your notes so you know what to expect when you come in here. And you want to know when you open up and there's an empty box, you're like, weren't there eggs here last week? You want to be able to refer to your notes so you know what was there last week. This will assist you with knowing where in the nesting cycle each nest box is. And forms are available online, or you can just keep good notes. So that was supposed to be reading that for that one. Here we go. Download the app. This is Citizen Science. So Nest Watch is something run by Cornell. And they have an app that allows you to really GPS locate all of your nest boxes. And they can give you nest and egg identification help. And they have nest box plans and tips on their website. And they ask that you report to them every week. So during the nesting season, you report every week. So that's the style of reporting they ask for is every week. So that's one thing you can do. And then here's our website. We also ask you for your data. We do things a little bit differently. We ask for everything reported annually. And we ask for the number of nests, eggs, hatchlings, and fledglings of each species. We maintain an email list and will notify you of data entry information and events. We'll tell you how to go about entering the data. Of course, it's also available on our website and things like that. So why would you want to give your data to CBRP? Well, your data tells us how effective our program is and where more attention could be given. It's our best tool to know which nest box trails are active and which might need new monitors. The data can be used to spot troubling trends in cavity nesting bird populations, especially in California. Now, I've mentioned our nest box monitor, Lee Pauser, several times, and he was actually talking to the people at Cornell, and using our data, he was able to show them that tree swallows in California were struggling this last season. That's something that not even Cornell was aware of. And late season rains, winds, climate change can all affect bluebirds and other cavity nesting bird populations. Bluebirds are an indicator species, and these can all be studied through our data. As global warming gets worse, we can learn what works and what doesn't work by studying our data. We have data for all the different counties in California and even down to the trails. So challenges. Let me scroll down. At this point, it may sound like I've covered some pretty negative stuff, and the challenges section is even more. But much of the stuff that I will tell you in challenges is actually kind of rare. I have to say that most of them have happened to me once, to either Georgette or I, over the decade or more that we've both been monitoring. But many of them I have never experienced, and many of them neither has Georgette. I like being really thorough in my training sessions, but I don't want you to think, wait a minute, what am I getting myself into? The truth is, the rewarding part of finding eggs and baby birds is the thing that happens every single week. And the unfortunate discoveries, they happen infrequently. With that being said, let's talk about some of the stuff that you might find on the trail and what you can do about it. So one of the most common predators that we find is the gopher snake. I'm showing you a photo of a gopher snake in a nest box, but let me be frank that it is not what you will find in the vast majority of snake attacks. This is. The snakes hit and run. And let me point out that snakes are something that can be relatively abundant in some places, and they just aren't elsewhere. I mentioned that they don't like hanging around golf courses. For example, Georgette has no problems with snakes at all. Many manicured golf courses or cemeteries or places like that don't have hiding places for snakes. My county park with its hiking trails does have snakes, and I need to plan accordingly. So one of the best responses to snake predation is to move the box. Snakes, like many predators, get educated the first time they find food in a nest box, for example, chicks. They learn where to find a meal, and they may return in a couple of weeks, hoping to find more. By moving the nest box, you kind of reset it. I mentioned knoll guards and stovepipe baffles. Use these if they are available to you as a deterrent to snakes. And raccoons. Now, I had a raccoon attack once on my nest boxes. Once. Raccoons are clever and strong. They can rip a nest box apart. That is what happened to my nest boxes. Yes, I lost 2 boxes to raccoons. And I've actually heard of other raccoon attacks where even more nest boxes were hit all in one night. That is what happened to my nest boxes. And I said they were smart. And sadly, of the raccoon attacks I've heard about, they usually seem to hit more than one box. Make your nest boxes nice and sturdy. Now, this is a screenshot from a video of a raccoon hitting a nest box. This raccoon has entirely too much of his arm in this box. And I have to assume that perhaps it was a slot box or the entrance was too big. Raccoon attacks are very rare. So I would suggest making sure that the entrance hole on your nest box is no larger than it has to be, that the nest box is made sturdy, and then just assume that it will not happen. And when it does, you can ask us for ideas on how to respond. As I said, making your nest boxes, they don't look exactly alike is one thing you can do. Another is to move them after they've been attacked, or even pull down some of the nest boxes in the areas where they get hit hardest and leave them down for a couple of years before you put them back up again. European paper wasps are usually found in boxes that are left in full sun. You can rub a bar of soap along the box ceiling. They will have trouble affixing their comb to the ceiling, which is what they usually like to do. And the other idea I have for you is to be sure you have good ventilation along the top of the nest box. Wasps don't like good ventilation along the top. And I actually kind of hope you have this problem. Bumblebees are native and struggling. They do sometimes build nests in our nest boxes, especially liking old chickadee nests, which are very soft. And I'm always glad to see bumblebees because it is a sign of a healthy ecosystem. You could put up another nest box for the birds. Honeybees are very rarely a problem, but if they are, you can just wait to see if they are still there the next week. They sometimes swarm into the nest box on a very temporary basis. If they linger, you can call in a bee person to remove them. Ants can be a problem. I've already discussed some solutions. The little Argentine ants have been known to hang around harmlessly in the nest box. When I find them all over the nestlings, it's never been really clear that the ants were the real problem, or maybe they were just there to scavenge when they found nestlings that were already dead from something else. Fire ants are another story. Fire ants, and certain other large ant species can be more harmful. If ants are a problem, in addition to using diatomaceous earth or tanglefoot, you're going to also want to move the box. And I've never had a real problem with parasites or blowflies. Unfortunately, they seem to be an issue that you may never really know about as a nest box monitor because it is something the birds have to deal with independently. Thus, what I can say is that you should always clear out those old nests when you find them to prevent parasites from reproducing in the nest. These wire platforms are supposed to be there to prevent blowflies, but I've never had a problem with blowflies. So this is a big state, and what isn't a problem in one location may be a problem somewhere else. So if blowflies are an issue for you, look at using these wire platforms. So corvids and hawks. Corvids are like jays, like the scrub jay. Birds like this can try and peek in and get a nestling. To combat this, use predator guards as you can and remove old nests so the birds don't have to build new nests on top of the old ones. And I've already talked about house sparrows. You can find more information on house sparrows by visiting our website, cbrp.org. So you go to Getting Started. This is our website. You go to Getting Started up at the top there, and then go down to Nest Box Monitoring. That takes you to our training page. Now, the house sparrow information is down towards the bottom, but what I'd like you to get out of this also is the fact that most of the stuff that I talk about today is down in text form in this same area. All this, pretty much everything I'm saying today is basically also taught in the Getting Started portion of our nest box of our website here. And then house wrens. Now, house wrens are a bit different, mainly because they are native birds. Unlike house sparrows, house wrens are protected by law, but they're a jealous little bird, and they can be really hard on any other bird trying to nest nearby. So, for example, if you have a bluebird nesting nearby in another nest box, the house wren may come and poke holes in the eggs. They don't kill adult birds like the house sparrows, but it can be very frustrating to work with them. If you see this, all these sticks, that's the hallmark of a house wren nest. And house wrens also will build dummy nests in any cavity that is near their nest. So they will try and keep all the other birds away from them. And so that's why if you know you're in house wren territory, you need to be kind of careful. The way I'd like you to work on it is put a nice box in their territory with a very small entrance so that chances are only the house wrens will use it, and then get everybody else away from the thickets, away from the house wren territory, and try and put them out so that the house wrens don't become a problem for them. And then woodpeckers. Now, woodpeckers are not, I mean, frankly, I like having woodpeckers in my nest box. Now I've got a couple of pine nest boxes. I didn't actually deliberately build them. They were built by some scouts who showed up and gave them to me. And so I put them into use. And it turns out that the soft wood of pine is really something the woodpeckers really liked. And so not only did they open up the nest boxes like they often do, they actually nested in them. So if you like woodpeckers, use pine nest boxes. We don't get that many woodpeckers in our nest boxes, but they do cause quite a bit of havoc on some of our nest boxes. For example, this is Tex Houston, our former nest box coordinator in Santa Clara County.
So it just happens that I work in a violin shop, that I can put a thin piece of one of these on, and this, so you need the right hole here. This is a Bluebird size, and this is a chickadee box.
Why do you need to put the piece?
Well, see how the woodpeckers have picked that hole?
Yeah.
See how the hole's not the right size anymore?
Oh,
it's only supposed to be 1.25 inches on these boxes,
Okay.
and that's definitely not 1.25 inches. That's more like 1.5 inches. And so I have these protectors of different sizes here. Verify that. Yeah, there's a smaller one. So this is the one I want. This dude. Okay, so first we'll drill a couple of holes.
Oh, I like it.
I don't have to worry about drilling a hole into this because it's soft, but this hardwood, there's no way to getting a screw through that would be quite a bit. That's why we have the drill. Like, no, I'm not, because then it's easier for the predators, and it's just not the right size. And also, that's why we do this.
Now, a couple things. First of all, he mentioned that he worked at a violin shop, and the rest of that story was the fact that they have like wood that they were getting rid of that was kind of what was left after they were done making their violins. And it turned out that the hardwood that they used for the violins made really good wood to make holes in and use as protectors against woodpecker damage. Now, back last week or on Tuesday, I believe I told you about protectors. They were metal and they're shaped the same way, and you can use those also. That's the whole point. And of course, you need to have really short screws so that you don't go poking into the nest box. You don't want sharp points sticking out at the bottom there. So make sure and have screws that are the right way. I don't generally use really narrow wood if you can help it, but unfortunately on hanging nest boxes, you kind of got to do that if you're going to be using a basket style retriever, and I use a basket style retriever. So anyway, another thing he mentioned was that the entrance hole had been opened from 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches. And remember, I mentioned the bluebirds like 1.5 inches. But the thing is that most of the birds in this area where this is being done are chickadees and wrens and titmice and nuthatches and things like that. All of them like an 1.25 inch hole. And if you use an 1.25 inch hole, that means you exclude house sparrows for one, and you actually do exclude bluebirds as well. But if you put up a few boxes for the bluebirds, a few boxes for the chickadees and things like that, then everybody gets a little something that they need. But in this case, oddly enough, it had opened it up to the point where the bluebirds can get in there, and no, he wants to go and close it back down. So anyway, I just thought that was a neat video to show you. And like I said, Tex Houston, our former Santa Clara County coordinator. So mice and rats and squirrels. Mice are a kind of a, these are actually native mice and native rats, wood rats and deer mice. And so they get to live in my nest box. I mean, even if I didn't want to let them live there, it's a county park, they are protected, and that's good because they're the bottom of the food chain. It's important that they are able to stay there. And then anyway, we're working on trying to find ways to not kill the mice or anything like that. If I find them in there, I go ahead and try and put up another nest box if I can help it. In other words, basically, I'm trying to help the cavity nesters, and sometimes the cavity nesters aren't the birds. Cats are a challenge because they obviously they kill a lot of wildlife, right? This is my old cat that was trying to tell us why we can't have clean laundry. But when you have cats in the neighborhood, make sure, and I think I may have already said this, but keep your nest boxes away from anything that will allow them to jump on top of them. Keep them away from fences, away from trees and things like that, so the cats can get on top, and you may even want to put spikes up on top of the roof. And then bats. Now, this is another problem that I hope you have, because frankly, bats are another endangered, they're not necessarily endangered, but they're not as common as they really should be. And if you have bats in your nest box, that means there are more bats than there are places for them to roost. And if that's the case, then we need to put up a bat house somewhere nearby, because bats are great. They help us by taking out mosquitoes and things like that. Here we are going around using poisons to get rid of the mosquitoes, and we could just put up bat boxes. It's crazy. So, but now remember that they do have, I don't think the bats that you find in your nest box are going to have rabies, but don't go and disturb them. Just close the box back up and let them, they're probably going to be gone by the next day. If they aren't, like I said, they need their own box, their own bat box, an official bat box that will be safer for them. And so, we want to try and help the bats, just like we want. They're cavity nesters too. They're cavity nesting mammals. Then soiled nests. I mentioned the little plastic cup. You want to carry that around so you can carry grass, and then you can you may have to kind of replace an old nest that maybe got really soaked up or something with water. And then finally, this is has to do with mortality, and mortality is sad, but it happens. Why would you lose an entire nest of babies? Of course, pesticides used nearby is one, where the babies all got poisoned, or heat or cold. You will generally know if it's super freezing out there, or if it's super hot. And unfortunately, it may not be it may not be the nest box that's the problem. Maybe the food source. So the food source crashed, and that might be the heat or the cold, or it could be just that the things got too hot inside the nest box or too cold inside the nest box. And then of course, if one of the parents gets killed, then that's going to be a problem, because the other one may not be able to keep up. So that's when you start finding say a dead 1 week old and a dead 2 week old and a dead, you know, two week and a little bit, you know, it's the kind of a little progressive deaths. Anyway, cleaning and repairing. Remember that your nest box, this is a video that was done. Remember that your nest box gets used during the winter for roosting. That's what these guys are doing. They're trying to keep warm by getting all together and huddling. Okay. So during the winter, you would go and you would check the integrity of the roof for water tightness. You'd repair any woodpecker damage, and then you would plug up the vents for roosting, so to keep things a little bit warmer in there. And if you think things need to be kind of cleaned out, you can use a 10% bleach solution. You spray in the box and let it dry thoroughly. So I would, if I was going to use a bleach solution, I'd leave that door open for some time so that the bleach will dry off, because we don't want to asphyxiate the birds. Georgette, you want to go ahead and come back on, and do we have any questions?
Yes, we had quite a few, actually. We had quite a few. Nancy just asked, what is the major food source for the bluebirds? I see them on the ground often.
Well, they eat a lot of ground dwelling insects, but they will often sometimes get up into the trees if they can find caterpillars up there. Like if they're really plentiful, sometimes there's a big eruption of caterpillars in the trees, but for the most part, they stay on the ground. They're looking for food in the ground, grubs and things like that. We showed a lot of pictures showing, you know, grasshoppers and pretty much anything that they can catch. Doug Ptolemy basically said that he was following a chickadee, and he said that 40% of the chickadee's diet was caterpillars. When I say diet, I mean as far as what they were feeding their babies. They actually eat a mix of different foods, like omnivores, I think. Yeah, they're looking for. I could get more information if you'd like, and that information is out there. If you want to look on Cialis.org, which we'll talk about a little bit, they have more information on what bluebirds eat.
And they also really like berries. This past season, one of our monitors, who only has one box, and she lives in El Sobrante, which is a very high dense urban area. If any of you have ever been to Berkeley, it's like that, an old neighborhood, an old town. And she has one box underneath an eave, and I've coached her for the past 3 years. Actually, we've had a lot of fun, and she's actually had 6 successful broods out of that one box, and she sees these birds all year long, which is really amazing to me. But there's a lot of food in her neighborhood, but there was a time last summer where apparently the insect population was low, and she found all these little pits in her nest. Remember that, Mike? Do you remember
yeah.
that? I think I shared the picture with you. And what had happened was the parents had resorted to feeding their babies little tiny plums. And sure enough, you know, the nest was really a gooey mess, but it was close to fledging. The babies all fledged, and you know, they fed their babies little plums.
Hey, Georgette, did you see my video? Did the video show?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Big city, you didn't see it.
And the best way, Portia's asking, the best way to remove hornets and wasps. Okay, Mike and I have had different experiences with this. Generally, when I get the paper wasps or the little potter's wasps, it's during the there's only one in there, one or two, and it's before the nests have been made and are built. And I wait until the cool of the evening and I go in there with my glove and a little spatula and I just knock them out of there, and they're pretty slow. So I've never been bothered by them. It's never bothered, they just go away after I knock off their little comb or their little nest. Now Mike has had another experience. He had he even made a video of it. He had a big nest in one of
Dozens of them.
Dozens of them.
It's by the way, I'm not worried about potter wasps, but
I know they're pretty cute actually.
yeah, well, they're basically, that's the little mud nest that's over on the side, and I don't think that would stop the birds from nesting. The paper wasps, the thing is that they're insects, and so I would have to think that they're kind of quaking in their boots when they're thinking of birds gonna come in there. But anyway, some of the things that I've done. Now, remember, you said you wanted to make sure everybody knew, don't go using pesticides
Right.
in there against them. So don't go in there and spray any Raid or anything like that. One thing I've done in the past is I've actually opened the door and left it for a week and let the tree swallows come in and clean it out.
Now that's a good point, because they will leave if you leave the door open, because the reason that they go in the nest box is they have a covered area.
Right. They don't like that. So but when it's literally to the point where when I open it up, you have to kind of jump back, because even though they're docile, even though I've never been stung, they really look like they want to come after you. So
well, Portia just was pretty clever here. She said she waited until dark and sprayed them with water. That's pretty good. I never heard of that one. See, that's something that I just learned. So thanks for that one. I never have done that, but
right.
And then Aaron is asking, Sue is asking to describe the cloth lifter basket. And Mike, you use a cloth lifter basket. Can you describe it?
The cloth lifter basket has it has a metal, it's got to be made out of sheet metal. See, I'm not the one who built it. It was actually made by Dusty Blair. So it's got a piece of metal that goes along the top that is in the shape, it's like a box without a floor, if that makes sense. In other words, if you looked at a box and all you had was the walls, and then with the cloth that's draped over it and sewn in, and then on the bottom of it there is a flat piece of card that holds it open, and then it's it has let me see if I can get my picture back up. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, here we go. All right. So if you see along the, you can see where the metal frame is, right?
Mhm.
And then I'm not somebody who can get in there with a sewing machine, but whoever did a good job of making like a cloth basket out of it and then draping it over the metal. And then there's a piece of probably like square, it could be metal or it could be cardboard or something like that. And then as you can see now, this is BioGuard. I tried to find this product and I couldn't find it. I don't know where he got the thing that it used, but it's basically a swimming pool tool that he kind of reshaped in order to hold on to it. And then he's got it held on with screws and bolts. And then another one that we have, so you saw the hook one. Let me see if I can find the other one.
And we have plans on the website, guys.
Right, and Lee Pauser has a lot of information on there too.
Mm-hmm.
Here's going to be in There it is. All right, so that is the wire basket version of it. And then there are wooden versions of it. So all I can really do is refer you all to Lee Pauser's information, and then you can ask us for more information through info@cbrp.org.
And then, are you done?
Yeah, no, yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Next question.
And then Jamie is saying, last year my backyard box had 3 sets of eggs. That's a lot of eggs, but none of them hatched. What would have caused this?
So did you remove the eggs? Did he
Let's
remove the
see.
eggs?
Jamie, you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, I removed them after I knew that they weren't going to hatch and they started building a nest on top of it. I removed everything out of it. As a matter of fact, I kept the last set as a spare nest for this year. Regardless, you know, they just never hatched. So I figured, you know, somebody was infertile or something. I'm not sure.
And the eggs started looking kind of dusty and had like little bird specks and stuff like that on them?
No, the eggs look good. The eggs look like, well, I mean, I can actually.
But now here's is it, where was this? Is it in a backyard or something?
Yes.
Okay. In my county park, what I have to worry about is if they come and they lay eggs, and then the first set of eggs that I saw get eaten, they come and they try again, they lay another set of eggs. Do I come and I see it and I say, what is taking these eggs so long? Because they've been here now for 3 weeks and they shouldn't have been. So I've got to be really careful not to just assume that there's a problem. Now, if it's in your backyard or something like that, then you probably have a better idea of what kind of predators are out there. Maybe there's no snakes that you know about there. So you know, I'm not saying that you got that wrong. I'm just saying that's something you have to worry about.
I don't know. I don't believe there was any predators. I just think, like I said, the infertile parents or something's my own.
You know what? You got to wonder if it's the infertile. The male was infertile, or if maybe somehow the female was you know, had some, maybe she was infertile. You know, or
but she laid the eggs, so
well, like
possible.
chickens will lay eggs even if they haven't been fertilized. So so I have to assume that, you know, other birds might do the same thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, Jamie, good luck this year. Hopefully were they bluebirds?
Yes.
Oh, that's so disappointing.
Very disappointing.
Yeah.
Well, it's disappointing no matter what, unless they were house sparrows.
Yeah.
If they were house sparrows, I hope they didn't hatch.
No, they're beautiful blue eggs.
What's the next question there, Georgette?
Okay, so Nancy, who I've communicated with, who lives in San Luis Obispo, and she has 3.6 acres of oak woodland in Central Coast. Wow, Nancy, that sounds heaven. And she has one nest box that has bluebirds in it for the past 2 years. Congratulations. And she says she wants to add more boxes. How much space do they need between boxes?
You know what? You are probably you probably have so many different bird species that I would not be, all I would say is put a different box in every tree. Just don't put them in the same tree.
You could.
But,
and the other thing, Nancy, is put some boxes up that only have the 1 1/4 inch entry hole.
Right.
To provide for chickadees and titmice. We focused on the bluebirds during, you know, the 2 classes, but we really want to emphasize the other birds too, because they do use the bluebird box.
Oak titmice and white-breasted nuthatches are both oak-loving birds. They really like oaks. Chickadees also like oaks, but they will also spread out into many other native kinds of trees, including conifers or sycamores or many other kinds. But you also may find that's 3 different species of birds that may end up using your nest boxes with 1.25 inch holes. And then there's the tree swallows and the violet green swallows that you also may end up. So there's so many different kind of birds that may end up trying to use your nest box, even ash-throated flycatchers if the
Yes,
habitat is
I've
right.
gotten those on the fringes of oak woodlands.
Right.
So to answer your question, it's hard to give you a specific yardage or footage because, we can't see your property. Just, just off the cuff, I think you could probably put 4 to 6 boxes on each acre.
I don't,
Um,
I
and
don't,
some
I
of them
don't
won't
put,
be used. Pardon?
I don't put them in the same tree, but and if
No, of course not.
if there's a lot of them, then I may put like one here and then put 2 trees down and then 2 trees down. That's what I have on mine.
Yeah,
So,
and she may not, she may not be using hanging boxes. She may be using poles. So, you can
if you use
staple those around
poles, but
too.
you can still put those under the canopy, which is
Yeah,
what we would be doing for,
yeah,
if you put pole mounted under the canopy, then that would be good chances of, but you really ought to at least have a knoll guard on those. If you use a pole mounted.
definitely. And
Um,
then Cindy is asking, do you have a picture of the wire that the box hangs from in a tree? And I think you do, Mike.
a picture of the wire that the
Yes,
box.
and Cindy, we do have instructions on the hanging box that
Oh, you know
Lee
what? Yeah,
Hauser.
there is so much information on all that stuff that that Lee Pauser gave us that I've really got to refer her there. And then get back to us if you still didn't get enough.
There it is. I saw it. Oh, there
Oh.
you can barely see it, but
The wire. Well,
the
but remember
wire.
the one that let me get back her and show Tex's video. So
A little bit of a woodpecker haven.
I'll wait until we see it
We've
toward the end
modified
of
this
it.
box.
Oh,
Yeah. Right.
okay. We have a
So, it just so
question
happens that
about. Okay, I'm
I
sorry.
work in
Go
a
keep going.
violin shop.
No, it's just I'm not gonna be able to do it. Oh well, I might be able to try and find one.
Okay, and
Um,
then we have to wrap it up here pretty quick. I haven't gone over the resources, but we do have one more question. Aaron has asked, any potential health risks, diseases passed from birds to humans or other animals to humans? If so, any recommendations on beyond the gloves and the masks? I can answer that.
Go ahead.
Okay. I've had my share of mice. I've had deer mice, and deer mice can harbor the hantavirus. So if you're cleaning out the box, you do need to wear your mask and your gloves. And I think at that point you're pretty safe because the main thing is you don't want to breathe in the fecal dust. And you could do it like put a plastic bag over the box and scooch it in that way if you wanted to. We don't recommend killing a mouse nursery. If there's a live nursery in there, please just leave it until they're gone. I did have what I thought was a wood rat in one of my boxes, and there's actually a big condo pretty close to it, so I'm pretty sure it was a wood rat. And I just, I cleaned it out with, wearing a mask and gloves and everything, and use a little bleach water afterwards to clean it out. I don't know if there are any animal diseases, animals to humans while we're on the trail. Do you, Mike? I don't know of any.
I don't. It's not really a problem. You know what the biggest problem would be? I would think would be to spread from get it from one bird and leave it with another bird.
Oh,
But we're not touching the birds, so that
yeah.
really shouldn't be an issue.
And you have to be cautious about ticks in long grass, in the summertime.
Right.
What I do is I put a little bit of DEET around my feet, and I carry my walking stick, and I kind of use that as a swisher to knock the ticks off if there are any around. And I've never had a problem with ticks in 24 years.
Hey,
So
let me try and rattle through the rest of this. Those the question about house wrens and Bewick's wrens, and the Bewick's wrens are not, they don't have the aggressive nature of the house
no.
wrens.
And I did write, oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna try and blast through the resources.
Well, I'll do it.
Yeah,
I'll do it.
blast through them.
Yeah, I'm going to. Okay, so Mike covered getting started on our website. Monitoring Your Bluebird Trail in California by Hatch Graham is a booklet that is available on the website. And what's good about that, it was written, gosh, in the late 90s, and it's still applicable. It's basic monitoring techniques. And also he talks about many of the birds that will use your nest boxes. Okay, and then the Bluebird Monitor's Guide is a book that I used and still look at. It's a good source. The Bluebird book, The Complete Guide to Attracting Bluebirds, has quite a bit of information in there about behavior, which is really interesting. www.cialis.org is a comprehensive everything bluebirds website. So you're really going to want to, look at that. The North American Bluebird Society has some excellent fact sheets, and we are an affiliate of the North American Bluebird Society. There's about 125 affiliates all over California, all over the United States. Bringing Nature Home and The Nature of Oaks by Doug Ptolemy. He is a professor and an entomologist who's really opened up the conversation nationally about planting natives in your backyards and in common spaces, and how we can restore huge swaths of habitat just by doing that. And so if you're interested, those are great reads. And then Myrna Pearman, one of our oldest colleagues in the Bluebird world, is the mountain bluebird expert, and she has a monitoring guide, easy to find. And she is the mountain bluebird expert, retired biologist, by the way, and who was the director of the Ellis Bird Farm in Alberta, Canada. She also wrote another book just recently, which we were very grateful to be able to contribute to. If you have youngsters, if you work with Eagle Scouts, I'll be using this book for my Eagle Scout candidates. We work with them often. I've had 6 of them in 2021. And it's actually good for any age, because she covers just about everything that we covered in these classes for new monitors. So I want to thank you for being here with us tonight.
Tell them about tomorrow's meeting.
The Southern California Bluebird Club is having their Zoom meeting, and it's up at the top of the chat. So just go all the way.
I pasted it again. It's at the bottom.
You
now.
did? Okay. So if you're interested in doing that, copy and paste it, and then attend it. It's at 9 in the morning. And if you live, where is
They're Southern California. They're a really good, very popular, well-run club of people down in Southern California. And if they start having this, allowing people to come in virtually, then you'll be able to attend their meetings. Heck, even I can attend their meetings every week. So it's going to be a great way to get together with people. We're here for you. They're here for you. And so please get back to us if you have any questions or anything like that. If you want to take advantage of Georgette's getting together with you.
Yeah, right now I have 10 people that I'm working with, and maybe a few more from this session, which I love. I mean, we really have a good time, and We do it all virtually, or well, actually here in Contra Costa County, I have 5 that I can actually work with hands-on. But just the fact, if you live, if we don't live close to each other, don't let that hold you back. Please do email me and we can work together virtually. I've done that
All right.
many times.
Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. And I guess we'll go ahead and call it here. Is this Dick still here? Oh, Dick?
Yep, still
Oh,
here.
he's still here. Good deal. All right. So I'm officially calling it into the meeting. So now just here for the small talk.
Yeah, I'm asking people to stay in touch.